I warned you, but you didn't listen!
Karen had just done something not even a deranged hobo with a broken compass and a heat stroke would do. And honestly, that's saying a lot. Everyone already knew Karen operated without the basic factory-installed common sense the rest of us were born with, but her latest stunt still managed to stun the neighborhood so hard we collectively forgot how to blink. Before I get into the volcanic details of her behavior, let's rewind the tape a little because this mess didn't start today. I've been in this neighborhood for years, long enough to witness two different HOA presidents come and go like confused pigeons, and none, I repeat, none, took their job as intensely, obsessively, and psychotically as Karen took hers. She treated that laminated HOA badge like it was a royal decree carved into glowing stone by ancient gods. She fined us for everything. You could get slapped with a $75 penalty for your grass being 1 millimeter too tall. You could earn a $50 citation if your porch light bulb wasn't the exact shade of HOA-approved daylight white, and if you dared step outside before the rooster even thought about warming up its vocal cords, boom, pre-dawn presence violation. She even fined a teenager for walking suspiciously fast, whatever that means. Still, none of her previous nonsense prepared us for her latest masterstroke of chaos, the No-Wheel Zone Act. According to Karen, our community needed to return to a simpler, purer way of moving. Whatever that meant, it apparently included banning bicycles, scooters, strollers, wheelbarrows, skateboards, grocery carts, and anything else round enough to roll. At first, we all assumed she just meant kids' toys, but the way she marched around gripping her clipboard like it was a weaponized Bible made us suspect she had darker intentions. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch HOA drama. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments what country or which city you're watching this story from. We'd love to know how far this story travels. When Karen first announced our community was now officially a no-wheel zone, nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, imagined she would take it to the level where even wheelchairs were suddenly illegal. People assumed she meant kids' toys or maybe the delivery guy's cart. But Karen interpreted that rule like she was auditioning for the Supreme Court of bad decisions. We were about to find out just how far she would her madness. My grandmother came to visit me shortly after the rule was announced. She's one of those tough, wise older women who survived more chaos in her youth than Karen could ever spell. The moment she stepped out of the car, she noticed something was off. People walked stiffly like they were afraid of getting cited for moving too confidently. Neighbors whispered instead of talking. Someone even crossed the street to avoid walking past Karen's house as if she had laser sensors aimed at ankles. My grandmother squinted around, then looked at me and asked why everyone behaved like frightened ducks in a thunderstorm. I explained everything. The fines, the rules, the madness, the obsession. The way Karen patrolled the neighborhood like a malfunctioning security robot with a superiority complex. My grandmother listened, and instead of being shocked, she chuckled. She thought I was exaggerating until she witnessed Karen yelling at a kid for rolling a marble recklessly on public pavement. That was the moment she muttered, "This woman needs holy water." She wasn't wrong. The next morning, grandmother went outside in her wheelchair just to enjoy some fresh air. She said the porch felt peaceful, and for a few minutes, everything seemed calm. Birds were chirping. A breeze flowed. It was one of those deceptively quiet moments right before life decides to turn into a circus. And oh, did it turn. My grandmother had only wanted a moment of peace. She sat on the porch in her wheelchair, watching the quiet street as I stayed inside, letting a movie play in the background. It was one of those calm mornings that felt almost healing, until everything shattered in a matter of seconds. A sudden burst of raised voices cut through the sound of the television. At first, I thought it was just another neighborhood argument, but then I heard fear. Real fear. A tone that forces your body to move before your mind can catch up. I rushed outside, heart pounding, and what I saw hit me harder than anything I had ever experienced. Karen, our HOA president, someone who should have been protecting the community, was standing in front of my grandmother with a gun pointed directly at her. The sight didn't feel real. My grandmother's hands trembled against the armrests of her wheelchair. Her face showed confusion, mixed with a kind of pain I had never seen on her before. Before I could reach them, Karen shoved her with both hands. My grandmother fell to the ground, her wheelchair tipping and crashing beside her. The sound of metal striking paying pavement cut through the neighborhood like a scream. My grandmother cried out, not just from the impact, but from the shock of being attacked so violently without reason. I dropped to my knees beside her, lifting her gently, trying to steady her shaking shoulders. She winced at the touch, and I saw a thin trail of blood running down her arm from where she had scraped it. My vision blurred for a moment, not from anger, but from the raw helplessness of seeing someone I love hurt. Karen, however, didn't stop. She stood there shouting, her voice shaking with some twisted conviction that she was justified. She accused my grandmother of violating the no-wheel zone, her words cold and detached from any sense of humanity. Neighbors gathered slowly, their expressions stunned, unsure whether approaching would make things worse. I forced myself to stay focused. My grandmother needed help. I took out my phone with unsteady hands and called 911, trying to keep my voice clear as I explained what happened. The operator stayed calm, but I could hear the urgency as they assured me help was on the way. Everything felt heavy, every second stretched painfully long, as I held my grandmother and waited, hoping the situation wouldn't escalate further. The police handled the scene with a steadiness that helped ground the chaos. My grandmother was lifted onto a stretcher with gentle, deliberate movements, while Karen stood frozen, her hands trembling as officers secured her in cuffs. Even then, she tried to cling to the idea that she was only enforcing HOA regulations, but those words held no weight against the reality of what she had done. She was arrested on the spot and formally charged with assault with a deadly weapon, elder abuse, brandishing a firearm, and reckless endangerment. The seriousness of the charges finally broke through whatever delusion she had been operating under. The first time since she became HOA president, Karen was unmistakably powerless. In the days that followed, the neighborhood stayed quiet, shaken by what we had witnessed. My grandmother remained in the hospital for a short time, recovering from the fall and the shock, but her strength was still there, steady beneath the bruises. I visited her often, each time grateful she was safe. Karen's trial drew nearly the entire neighborhood to the courthouse. She appeared smaller than I had ever seen her, stripped of her clipboard, her authority, her constant air of superiority. When the charges were read, she didn't argue, she didn't shout, she didn't blame anyone else. She simply lowered her head and pleaded guilty. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was clarity. Maybe it was finally understanding she had crossed a line she could never undo. The judge sentenced her to 3 years in state prison and ordered her to pay $48,000 in restitution, covering medical bills, emotional damages, and community penalties for the danger she had caused. The number wasn't random. It was a reflection of every reckless choice she made that morning. When the verdict was read, my grandmother squeezed my hand. She didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She just breathed, relieved that truth had spoken for her. And as Karen was led away, the neighborhood finally felt the weight lifting. The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.